All right. So I should say at the outset that this is going to be kind of a more general overview of financial aid. And so it might be, Matt, for example, for you, it might be kind of a lot of kind of review. There is a session tomorrow, and I'm going to put it in the chat. Um, Tomorrow night, I'm hosting a program with College Guidance Network. There's the link. And I'm hosting it with a specialist on financial aid, and he's going to really get into the nitty gritty. And we're going to have somebody else there in the chat that's answering specific questions. So I would say if you have kind of really dialed in specific questions about your family circumstance or things like that, or the intricacies of financial aid, I would definitely encourage you to attend that. This is going to be more, like I said, of an overview and just kind of a snapshot of financial aid. I am not, I will say also at the outset, I am not a financial advisor or specialist in financial aid. I know enough to be dangerous, and I know about the process. I don't pretend to be a financial aid professional, and there are many of those, and we'll talk a little bit about getting in touch with them as we go on here. So, and again, just unmute yourself or raise your hand or whatever if you want me to stop and talk more about something. This is just a little bit about college costs. I just thought these are interesting numbers. That 48% of adults think college charges the same amount for everyone. And what would you guess? You can just put it in the chat. What would you guess? How many students? What percentage of students at colleges and universities, kind of at large throughout the U.S., receive at least some financial aid? What would you guess the percentage is? Yeah, you've obviously done this before. 85% of students receive some form of financial aid. I mean, that's all to say that the sticker price that you'll see, the cost of attendance, is not the actual cost for most people. And so that's really important to keep in mind as you plan forward. A couple myths about college affordability. I just wanted to kind of talk through some of these. Um, Again, that you can't afford the price tag. We're going to talk a little bit about the net price calculator, but the cost of attendance that is listed is not what most people pay for college. Some families think they make too much to qualify for aid. That is, for some, it's true, and for some, because of the amount of assets and things like that they have, that's true. But for the large majority, they're actually surprised by the fact that they qualify for some sort of aid. And so you don't know what's the lottery you can't win if you don't play. Is that their tagline? So um, worth applying for financial aid. And then, I can only afford a public college. Um, you'll see here that their public schools are great choices and often are less expensive in terms of total cost for in-state students, obviously. But a lot of times the financial aid in need-based aid and maybe scholarships that a private school outside of your state or even in the state can offer might actually come in lower than public school tuition. Um, I can't afford the cost to apply, let alone attend college. Colleges do have fee waivers for students who qualify, and so if you think you qualify for those waivers, check with your guide, check with Tyler, and see because those we can make those available to students to apply because it if you're applying to 10 colleges and they each cost $50, that's not nothing. And they usually cost more than $50. So there's options there. And then this idea that college debt is bad debt. There, while you need to be careful about the amount of debt you take and really plan thoughtfully, there is not it's not totally negative to go into debt to achieve your goals. If it's, again, reasonable amount of debt, and that you're looking at earnings that potentially will offset that. Okay, where to start? Financial fit. We often talk about kind of finding the right fit college, or a good match college. The financial piece for most families is a huge part of that, and so I really encourage families, even early in high school. I know we have sophomores, parents of sophomores here, and a senior family, but have these conversations early and often about what your family can afford, what kind of sacrifices would have to be made to afford college. Maybe just kind of your style of living might be impacted based on the amount that you choose to take on in terms of college costs. And so having those conversations early rather than in April of senior year, when you already know where you've been admitted, and you're facing the reality of college costs. Having those conversations early is key. Each college will have information on their financial aid processes. Every college is federally mandated to have what's called the net price calculator on their website. I have two examples. I'll send these slides out. I have two examples linked here for UGA and Emory. But really, if you if you just Google um, Emory and net price calculator, you'll get the one that they have on their site. And what these are basically, you enter in some pretty high level information on your taxes and things like that, that and earnings and that kind of stuff, income, and it will tell you what you're likely to pay for tuition there. And they need to be they're ballpark figures, and it's an estimate, and so you need to take it with a grain of salt. But you can start to get a sense for where you'll qualify for aid and how much. For need-based aid, to be considered for need-based aid, you must file the free application for federal student aid, the FAFSA. And you've probably seen things about it in the news in the last couple of years, and the kind of debacle that happened in terms of the forms not being ready. This year, it is all on track, and hopefully will remain smooth, and so that shouldn't be a problem anymore. And then some schools, some colleges, especially small private school, not small private colleges usually will also require the CSS profile, which is a separate form that, and we'll look at what's included in those in a second. But they're both those forms are available now. So if you're a senior applying to college, you and your family can start on those right now. And the FAFSA, what it does is it determines what's called the Student Aid Index, the SAI. It used to be called the EFC, the Estimated Family Contribution. And basically, it is a assessment of how much this formula figures that a family can pay to send their student to college, to that one student to college. And so as you look at that, and you look at cost of attendance, the COA, cost of attendance, is another figure that every school publishes, and that will include tuition, room, board, estimated travel costs, average travel costs, books, fees, other everything. So that's kind of all in what the cost of attendance is. And so basically, the difference between the cost of attendance, how much it's going to cost to go there, and then the student aid index is how much you are able to pay through this formula. That kind of tells you how much aid you need. So if the cost of attendance is $70,000 and your student aid index is 20,000, they're saying you can pay 20,000 to go there, then your financial need at that school is $50,000. And again, this is just completely based on need, and not on your grades or test scores and things like that. And families often ask, we're right on the bubble maybe, and we probably could afford to pay, but we might qualify for aid. Will that hurt us if we apply for aid in the admission process? Will they look at us differently? And again, every school has a different policy. Some schools are what's called need blind in admission, so they make their admission decisions totally separate from whether or not you need financial aid. And some are need conscious or need aware, or they basically, they, because of the limited amount of money they have to give out, they have to factor that into their admission process. So it depends. Schools should be frank about that, and so ask. But in the end, if you, I would recommend applying for financial aid, because if you need aid, then you need aid, right? And so unless you're gonna somehow find money somewhere else, then I think you're better off applying in the first place. And then these are just kind of the breakdown on what's on the collected on the FAFSA form. They're looking at your income from the prior year. So if you're going to be beginning college in 2026, you'll report your 2024 income. They're looking at household size, bank accounts, income, real estate is not that is not primary residence. So that's the information on the FAFSA. And then on the CSS profile, it digs into some deeper pieces. They're looking at home equity of the primary residence. They're looking at income and assets from divorced parents, whereas the FAFSA is just looking from if it's a divorced family, they're looking for the uh, income and assets of the parent that you are living with um, the largest percentage of the year. And then these are the types of aid for need-based financial aid. The first is gift aid. It might be called scholarships or grants, and that's money that is not to be repaid. And then the other piece is in a financial aid package comes through loans that do need repaid back, and some are subsidized and some are unsubsidized. Subsidized meaning you don't have to pay interest on them until you graduate from college. So the federal government is subsidizing those while you're in college. And then, and also federal work study. So part of a financial aid package might be an offer for a part-time job on campus to help pay for college expenses. And when you get that package, when you see a financial aid offer, you can accept or decline any parts of those. So if you decide you don't want to do the work study, you don't have to, but then you're on the hook for that money. So those are just ways that you can they're offering types of financial aid to support your education. Um, I'm not going to, since I'm going to send the slide out, I'm not going to go too deep into um, these. These are just some slides about the typical process for submitting the FAFSA, and has the link to the websites, and kind of the process by the student submitting their form, and then parents receive an email and log in, and then likewise with the CSS profile, um, the link there and some tips based on how that process needs to work. There is a charge, even though the FAFSA is a free application for federal student aid, the CSS profile, there is a fee to submit it. But if you are a student who has a family income of under $100,000, it's free to submit. And so you basically, as you fill out the forms, they determine based on what you're entering in if that's free or not for you, and so you won't be charged at the end if you qualify. And then other financial aid forms beyond FAFSA and CSS profile. Each college might have specific forms. There are institutional forms that they want you to fill out, or depending on your state, you might have forms that are required by your state especially for public schools, to fill out. So you really need to look specifically at the financial aid website of each college to which you're applying to make sure you're clear on what their expectations are and also when the deadlines are. That it's really important. It's it comes the forms become available on October 1st. Like I said, they're already available, but sometimes they're not due until the the deadline for admission, which might be in November or maybe in January. But I would not wait. I mean, it's important to start working on these forms now and getting it all in. And because if you miss a deadline, you might very well qualify for aid, but if they might have already given it all out, they might have already extended all their offers, and so you'll miss out on the chance to apply. And for those students who end up applying early decision or early action to a college, they'll have earlier financial aid deadlines, and you will often receive a package earlier, so you'll be able to see that and kind of compare. All right, and then let's just talk about merit-based aid. So, merit scholarships are not typically connected to financial need. Sometimes they are into honor academic achievement or leadership or service. There are some college athletic scholarships. The idea of a full ride for a sport is few and far between. But there are some schools in Division 1 that offer scholarships depending on which sport you're playing and your level of play at that competition in that sport. Division 3 are not going to offer financial scholar or athletic scholarships. Um, so let's see what else we have here. Um, Oftentimes the merit scholarships are combined with need-based financial aid. So they might say, you qualify for, uh, $50,000 of financial aid, but we're going to give you $10,000 of a merit scholarship to kind of sweeten the deal and to try to attract you to enroll there and to help you out. So um, the again, I know I've said this a couple of times now, but you need to check each website and do your research because there's different varieties of kind of the processes. Some will all automatically consider you for merit scholarships. They kind of flag students as they read applications if they think they meet a certain academic level that they're considering for merit scholarships. And then others, they have specific deadlines. They're automatically considered, but you have to apply by the first for, you see the examples here for Boston College and by the 15th for Wake Forest, just as two examples. So that doesn't mean you're committing to go there. It just means for them to review you for a merit scholarship, you need to have applied by then. And there are some scholarships where students need to write an additional essay or submit additional materials to be considered. And then there are just a few at different colleges that students are nominated by their high school for specific scholarships. So if you find there's one of those scholarships that your high school needs to nominate you, just let us know. Just let Tyler know, Brittany know, and we'll make sure you're nominated for that. How do you keep track of all this? Again, I can't say it enough. You know, college websites and the financial aid officers at colleges and universities are great resources. And they're there really as, I mean, they call them financial aid counselors because they really are there to counsel you and to answer your questions and kind of help you through what can be a really murky process for some, and especially people who are going through this the first time or whose parents haven't gone to college and are not familiar with this process. um, those folks are great resources. And so it doesn't have to be at every college, but just find someone at one college that you really trust and rely on, and use that person to field questions and things like that. Also, when you're on campus during college visits, when you're touring colleges, go and meet with the financial aid office and ask any specific questions you have, or dig into their process more specifically at that school. And then I'm a fan of a good spreadsheet, having all your colleges listed, and then when the deadlines are for not only the admission deadlines but also the financial aid deadlines, and do they offer scholarships? Do they not? Do you need to apply? Keeping that all in one place can be really useful. And then there are a few outside scholarships that are not connected to colleges and universities, that are offered by companies. Sometimes employers offer college scholarships for their employees' children, or maybe a local nonprofit or organization. A lot of times these require an essay, or for you to submit your transcript. And A great place to find these is through your local public school, because usually the local organizations send them to the guidance office at their local public school, so that students are aware. But you're still, even though you're at Forest, you're still uh, can access those and apply for those. So look on their website or stop by the school and see if they have any specific scholarships. And again, those scholarships are typically we're not talking thousands of dollars. We're talking about $500 or maybe $1,000, but every little bit helps. And it depends on how willing you are to apply for them and be persistent. And so, there are some of the big kind of like Coca-Cola scholarship and some of these big ones, which are just so intensely competitive. I mean, doesn't mean you shouldn't apply, but those, there's thousands and thousands of students applying for, kind of a full ride, one or two scholarships. So that's also something just to keep in mind. And then here's some, again, I'll send these slides out. Here's some outside scholarship resources, some kind of one-stop shop for scholarship searches. Um, Going Mary, Scholly, Scholar Snap, and then also these two websites, FastWeb and finaid.org. That's finaid.org is the government's financial aid kind of clearinghouse. And then FastWeb. These are databases where you can search for private scholarships and loans and things like that, but you can also enter in your profile, and they will match you to scholarships kind of on an ongoing basis. So you kind of I mean, and you're going to get lots of emails, and so it depends on how much you're willing to kind of be marketed to, but you also there might be some really obscure uh, scholarship that you didn't know of, and they might send it to you. So what was the one? The Asthmatic Athletes of America had one that one of my students got years ago, and they found it through FastWeb, and it was like for athletes who have asthma. And they applied for it and they got it. And sometimes few students apply for some of these, and so some of these smaller ones can be lucrative. And here's just some other programs. So I mentioned this one that I'm hosting tomorrow night with Mark Salisbury, who's the co-founder of Tuition Fit. He's gonna really kind of dig into the FAFSA and mistakes that families often make when filling it out. And then there's also this other one tomorrow night that you could probably register for, and get the let me see if I can. I'll put this in the chat too. Um, There you go. There's another one for tomorrow night, and then there's one on kind of a intro to financial aid on November 13th from Davidson. And it's not just specific to their process, but a lot of colleges and universities, once you get on their mailing list, they'll let you know when they have programs around things like financial aid and things like that that are just designed to help you kind of walk you through the process and not just kind of talking about their school. All right, that was a lot of information. I want to be conscious of the time, but also allow for those of you who've joined us to ask questions if you have any questions.
Thanks, Brandon. This is not, I don't have any specific questions. It was a good overview and refresher and update on how things have been evolving in the area.
Yeah, I figured you've probably been through this and have a sense for how it all works, but
I have a decent sense, but those are some great resources in terms of, some of the additional areas to look for specifics. There's sounds like there's some great niche areas to explore as well in terms of additional areas of support.
right, and especially, I mean, with twins, maybe I mean, they might have some things specific to families with twins and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, and no questions from Evangeline. Okay. Well, thank you all for joining me, and have a great night. And we'll be back next month with another one, and we'll send out information on that.
Awesome. Thanks, Brendan.
All right,
Thank
take
you
good
so
care.
much.
All
Yep,
right. Bye
bye.
now.
Thank you. Bye.